Welcome to Tech with Kaushik. This is part 7 of our complete practice question series for the CLF-C02 AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam. Choose your answer before the timer ends, then review the correct answer, explanation, and exam tip. Let us begin part 7. Question number 338. An organization created an Amazon EC2 instance. The company needs to control the incoming and outgoing network traffic at the instance level. What AWS resource or service can satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Shield. Option B. Security Groups. Option C. Network Access Analyzer. Option D. VPC Endpoints. The correct answer is B. Security Groups. Here is why. Security groups act as stateful virtual firewalls that control inbound and outbound traffic for associated EC2 instances. Why are the other options not correct? A. AWS Shield provides protection against distributed denial-of-service attacks. C. Network Access Analyzer identifies network paths that meet defined access requirements. D. VPC endpoints provide private access to supported services. Exam tip. Security groups control instance traffic. Network ACLs control subnet traffic. Question number 339. What options are AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CAF, Governance Perspective capabilities? Choose 2. Option A. Identity and Access Management. Option B. Cloud Financial Management. Option C. Application Portfolio Management. Option D. Innovation Management. E. Product Management. The correct answer is B. Cloud Financial Management. C. Application Portfolio Management. Here is why. Cloud Financial Management and Application Portfolio Management are capabilities within the AWS CF Governance Perspective. Why are the other options not correct? A. Identity and Access Management belongs to the Security Perspective. D. Innovation Management belongs to the Business Perspective. E. Product Management belongs to the Business Perspective. Exam tip. CF Governance includes financial, application portfolio, risk, and data governance. Question number 340. An organization has decided to adopt Amazon EC2 infrastructure and needs to scale various stateless services for short-term usage. What EC2 pricing model is most cost-efficient to satisfy these requirements? Option A. Spot instances. Option B. On-demand instances. Option C. Reserved instances. Option D. Dedicated hosts. The correct answer is A. Spot instances. Here is why. Spot instances provide deeply discounted spare EC2 capacity and suit stateless, flexible, short-term workloads that can tolerate interruption. Why are the other options not correct? B. On-demand has no commitment but generally costs more than spot. C. Reserved instances suit predictable, sustained usage with a commitment. D. Dedicated hosts address physical isolation and licensing requirements. Exam tip. Use Spot for interruption-tolerant stateless workloads at the lowest EC2 price. The correct answer is C. Designed for automated recovery from failure. Here is why. Automated recovery detects failures and restores service without depending on manual intervention, improving workload reliability. Why are the other options not correct? A. Data placement should follow workload access and latency requirements. B. Cloud workloads should scale with demand instead of remaining at peak capacity. D. Tight coupling allows failures to spread between dependent components. Exam tip: reliable cloud workloads detect failures and recover through tested automation. Question number 342. What design principles should a company apply to AWS cloud workloads to maximize sustainability and minimize environmental impact? Choose 2. Option A. Maximize utilization of Amazon EC2 instances. Option B. Minimize utilization of Amazon EC2 instances. Option C. Minimize usage of managed services. Option D. Force frequent application reinstallations by users. E. Reduce the need for users to reinstall applications. The correct answer is A. Maximize utilization of Amazon EC2 instances. E. Reduce the need for users to reinstall applications. Here is why. Higher resource utilization reduces idle capacity, while fewer reinstallations reduce processing, data transfer, and device resource consumption. Why are the other options not correct? B. Low utilization wastes provisioned computing capacity. C. Managed services can improve efficiency and reduce customer-managed infrastructure. D. Frequent reinstalls increase resource consumption and environmental impact. Exam tip: sustainability maximizes resource utilization and minimizes unnecessary processing. Question number 343. What does Amazon CloudFront provide? Option A. Automatic scaling for all resources to power an application from a single unified interface. Option B. Secure delivery of data, videos, applications, and APIs to users globally with low latency. Option C. Ability to directly manage traffic globally through a variety of routing types, including latency-based routing, GeoDNS, geoproximity, and weighted round-robin. Option D. Automatic distribution of incoming application traffic across multiple targets, such as Amazon EC2 instances, containers IP addresses, and AWS Lambda functions. The correct answer is B. Secure delivery of data, videos, applications, and APIs to users globally with low latency. Here is why. CloudFront is a content delivery network that uses globally distributed edge locations to deliver content securely with low latency. Why are the other options not correct? A. This does not describe a specific CloudFront capability. C. Route 53 provides DNS routing policies such as latency and weighted routing. D. Elastic load balancing distributes traffic across application targets. Exam tip: CloudFront caches and delivers content globally. Route 53 provides DNS routing. Question number 344. What AWS service supports the deployment and management of applications in the AWS cloud? Option A. Amazon CodeGuru. Option B. AWS Fargate. Option C. AWS CodeCommit. Option D. AWS Elastic Beanstalk. The correct answer is D. AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Here is why. Elastic Beanstalk deploys and manages applications while automatically handling supporting resources such as capacity, scaling, and health monitoring. Why are the other options not correct? A. CodeGuru provides automated code reviews and performance recommendations. B. Fargate provides serverless compute for containers. C. CodeCommit is a source code repository service. Exam tip: Elastic Beanstalk simplifies application deployment and environment management. Question number 345. What Amazon S3 feature or storage class uses the AWS backbone network and edge locations to reduce latencies from the end user to? Amazon S3? Option A. S3 cross-region replication. Option B. S3 transfer acceleration. Option C, S3 event notifications. Option D, S3 standard infrequent access, S3 standard LA. The correct answer is B, S3 transfer acceleration. Here is why. S3 transfer acceleration routes transfers through nearby edge locations and the AWS global network to improve long-distance data transfer performance. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cross-region replication copies objects between buckets in different regions. C. S3 event notifications publishes events when specified object actions occur. D. S3 standard IA is a storage class for infrequently accessed data. Exam tip. Transfer acceleration speeds long-distance transfers into and out of Amazon S3. Question number 346. An organization is migrating to the AWS cloud. The company needs to understand and identify potential security misconfigurations or unexpected behaviors. The company needs to prioritize any protective controls it might need. What AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, security perspective capability can satisfy these requirements? Option A, identity and access management. Option B, threat detection. Option C, platform engineering. Option D, availability and continuity management. The correct answer is B, threat detection. Here is why. The AWS CLF threat detection capability identifies security misconfigurations, threats, and unexpected behavior to help prioritize protective controls. Why are the other options not correct? A. Identity and access management controls identities and permissions. C. Platform engineering belongs to the platform perspective. D. Availability and continuity management belongs to the operations perspective. Exam tip. CLF threat detection identifies suspicious behavior and informs protective controls. Question number 347. An organization needs to generate a list of IAM users. The company also needs to view the status of various credentials that are associated with the users, such as password, access keys, and multi-factor authentication (MFA) devices. What AWS service or feature can satisfy these requirements? Option A, IAM credential report. Option B, AWS IAM Identity Center, AWS Single Sign-On. Option C, AWS Identity and Access Management Access Analyzer. Option D, AWS Cost and Usage Report. The correct answer is A, IAM Credential Report. Here is why. An IAM credential report lists IAM users and the status of their passwords, access keys, MFA devices, and other IAM managed credentials. Why are the other options not correct? B, IAM Identity Center centrally manages workforce access to accounts and applications. C, IAM Access Analyzer identifies unintended or externally accessible resource permissions. D, Cost and usage reports provide detailed billing and usage data. Exam tip. Use an IAM credential report to audit IAM user credential status. Question number 348. An organization needs to track tags, buckets, and prefixes for its Amazon S3 objects. What S3 feature can satisfy this requirement? Option A, S3 Inventory Report. Option B, S3 Lifecycle. Option C, S3 Versioning. Option D, S3 ACLs. The correct answer is A, S3 Inventory Report. Here is why. S3 Inventory generates scheduled lists of objects and selected metadata, and can scope reports by bucket and object prefix and include object tags. Why are the other options not correct? B, S3 lifecycle transitions or expires objects according to configured rules. C. S3 versioning preserves multiple versions of objects. D. S3 ACLs define access permissions for buckets and objects. Exam tip. S3 inventory reports object lists and metadata. Lifecycle manages object retention. Question number 349. An organization plans to run a compute-intensive workload that uses graphics processing units, GPUs. What Amazon EC2 instance type should the company use? Option A. Accelerated computing. Option B. Compute optimized. Option C. Storage optimized. Option D. General purpose. The correct answer is A. Accelerated computing. Here is why. Accelerated computing instances use hardware accelerators such as GPUs to support graphics, machine learning, rendering, and other compute-intensive workloads. Why are the other options not correct? B. Compute-optimized instances provide high CPU performance without necessarily providing GPUs. C. Storage-optimized instances are designed for high local storage throughput. D. General-purpose instances balance compute, memory, and networking resources. Exam tip. Choose accelerated computing instances when a workload requires GPUs. Question number 350. An organization needs to run a pre-installed third-party firewall on an Amazon EC2 instance. What AWS service or feature can provide this solution? Option A. Network ACLs. Option B. Security groups. Option C. AWS Marketplace. Option D. AWS Trusted Advisor. The correct answer is C. AWS Marketplace. Here is why. AWS Marketplace offers third-party software products, including firewall appliances that can be delivered as pre-configured AMIs and launched on EC2. Why are the other options not correct? A. Network ACLs are subnet-level traffic controls, not third-party firewall software. B. Security groups are AWS virtual firewalls for resources. D. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. Exam tip. Use AWS Marketplace to find and deploy third-party software on AWS. Question number 351. Which one of the following is entirely the responsibility of AWS under the AWS Shared Responsibility Model? Option A. Security awareness and training. Option B. Development of an IAM password policy. Option C. Patching of the guest operating system. Option D. Physical and environmental controls. The correct answer is D. Physical and environmental controls. Here is why. AWS is entirely responsible for the physical facilities, environmental safeguards, hardware, and infrastructure that operate AWS services. Why are the other options not correct? A. Customers train their own employees and users on security awareness. B. Customers create and manage their IAM password policies. C. Customers patch guest operating systems that they manage on Amazon EC2. Exam tip. AWS manages physical infrastructure. Customers manage identities and EC2 guest systems. Question number 352. What AWS services or features give users the ability to create a network connection between two VPCs? Choose 2. Option A. VPC endpoints. Option B. Amazon Route 53. Option C. VPC peering. Option D. AWS Direct Connect. E. AWS Transit Gateway. The correct answer is C. VPC peering. E. AWS Transit Gateway. Here is why. VPC peering directly connects two VPCs, while Transit Gateway can connect and route traffic between multiple attached VPCs through a central hub. Why are the other options not correct? A. VPC endpoints privately connect a VPC to support its services, or endpoint services. B. Route 53 provides DNS and traffic routing. D. Direct Connect links an external network to AWS rather than directly connecting two VPCs. Exam tip: use peering for direct VPC links and Transit Gateway for centralized VPC connectivity. Question number 353. An organization operates a petabyte-scale data warehouse to analyze its data. The company wants a solution that will not require manual hardware and software management. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon DocumentDB with MongoDB compatibility. Option B. Amazon Redshift. Option C. Amazon Neptune. Option D. Amazon Elastic Cache. The correct answer is B. Amazon Redshift. Here is why. Amazon Redshift is a fully managed, petabyte-scale data warehouse designed for analytics without manual management of data warehouse hardware. Why are the other options not correct? A. DocumentDB is a managed document database compatible with MongoDB workloads. C. Neptune is a managed graph database. D. Elastic Cache is a managed in-memory caching service. Exam tip: Redshift is AWS's managed data warehouse for large-scale analytics. Question number 354. An organization needs to verify if multi-factor authentication, MFA, is enabled for all users within its AWS accounts. What AWS service or resource can satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS Cost and Usage Report. Option B. IAM Credential Reports. Option C. AWS Artifact. Option D. Amazon CloudFront Reports. The correct answer is B. IAM Credential Reports. Here is why. IAM Credential Reports show each IAM user and whether an MFA device and other credentials are configured. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cost and usage reports contain detailed billing and usage records. C. AWS Artifact provides compliance reports and agreements. D. CloudFront reports provide content delivery usage and activity information. Exam tip: Credential reports provide account-wide IAM user password, key, and MFA status. Question number 355. What AWS cloud benefit gives a company the ability to quickly deploy cloud resources to access compute, storage, and database infrastructures in a matter of minutes? Option A. Elasticity. Option B. Cost savings. Option C. Agility. Option D. Reliability. The correct answer is C. Agility. Here is why. Agility enables organizations to provision compute, storage, and database resources within minutes instead of waiting for lengthy hardware procurement. Why are the other options not correct? A. Elasticity adjusts capacity as workload demand changes. B. Cost savings concern reducing infrastructure and operating expenses. D. Reliability concerns consistent operation and recovery from failures. Exam tip: Agility means provisioning and experimenting quickly. Elasticity follows demand. Question number 356. An organization needs to use application stacks to run a workload in the AWS cloud. The company needs to use pre-configured instances. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon Lightsail. Option B. Amazon Athena. Option C. AWS Outposts. Option D. Amazon EC2. The correct answer is A. Amazon Lightsail. Here is why. Lightsail provides simplified, pre-configured instances and application blueprints for common stacks such as WordPress, LAMP, Node.js, and Jinx. Why are the other options not correct? B. Athena provides serverless SQL queries for data in Amazon S3. C. Outposts extends AWS infrastructure into on-premises locations. D. EC2 provides configurable virtual servers, but not the same simplified application blueprints. Exam tip. Lightsail provides simple, pre-configured application stacks with predictable bundles. Question number 357. An organization needs to use the AWS cloud to deploy an application globally. What architecture deployment model should the company use to satisfy this requirement? Option A, multi-region. Option B, single region. Option C, multi-availability zone. Option D, single availability zone. The correct answer is A, multi-region. Here is why. A multi-region deployment places application resources in multiple geographic AWS regions to serve a globally distributed user base. Why are the other options not correct? B. A single region deployment operates from only one geographic region. C. Multi-availability zone improves availability within one region rather than providing global deployment. D. Single availability zone uses one isolated location and provides neither global reach nor availability zone resilience. Exam tip. Multi-availability zone provides regional resilience. Multi-region supports global deployment. Question number 358. What can a user accomplish using AWS Cloud Trail? Option A. Generate an IAM user credentials report. Option B. Record API calls made to AWS services. Option C. Assess the compliance of AWS resource configurations with policies and guidelines. Option D. Ensure that Amazon EC2 instances are patched with the latest security updates. The correct answer is B. Record API calls made to AWS services. Here is why. Cloud Trail Record supported AWS API and account activity for auditing, governance, compliance, security analysis, and troubleshooting. Why are the other options not correct? A. IAM generates IAM user credential reports. C. AWS config evaluates resource configurations against rules and requirements. D. Systems Manager Patch Manager can automate patching for supported managed nodes. Exam tip. Cloud Trail Records API activity. AWS config evaluates resource configurations. Question number 359. An organization is planning to host its workloads on AWS. What AWS service requires the company to update and patch the guest operating system? Option A. Amazon DynamoDB. Option B. Amazon S3. Option C. Amazon EC2. Option D. Amazon Aurora. The correct answer is C. Amazon EC2. Here is why. With Amazon EC2, the customer manages and patches the guest operating system, applications, and associated software. Why are the other options not correct? A. DynamoDB is managed by AWS without a customer-managed guest operating system. B. Amazon S3 is managed object storage with no guest OS for the customer to patch. D. Aurora is a managed relational database whose underlying OS is managed by AWS. Exam tip. EC2 customers patch the guest OS. AWS manages the OS for managed services. Question number 360. An organization is migrating its workloads to the AWS cloud. The company must retain full control of patch management for the guest operating systems that host its applications. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon DynamoDB. Option B, Amazon EC2. Option C, AWS Lambda. Option D, Amazon RDS. The correct answer is B, Amazon EC2. Here is why. EC2 gives the customer control of the guest operating system, including its update schedule, security patches, applications, and configuration. Why are the other options not correct? A. DynamoDB is a managed NoSQL database with no customer-managed guest OS. C. Lambda runs code without exposing a guest OS for customer patch management. D. Amazon RDS manages the underlying database host operating system. Exam tip: choose EC2 when the customer requires full control of the guest operating system. Question number 361. An organization needs to create a globally accessible e-commerce platform for its customers. The company needs to use a highly available and scalable DNS web service to connect users to the platform. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A, Amazon EC2. Option B, Amazon VPC. Option C, Amazon Route 53. Option D, Amazon RDS. The correct answer is C, Amazon Route 53. Here is why. Route 53 is a highly available and scalable DNS service that routes users to Internet applications and AWS resources. Why are the other options not correct? A. Amazon EC2 provides virtual servers, not managed DNS. B. Amazon VPC provides isolated virtual networks. D. Amazon RDS provides managed relational databases. Exam tip: Route 53 provides DNS registration, resolution, health checks, and traffic routing. Question number 362. An Amazon EC2 instance previously used for development is inaccessible and no longer appears in the AWS Management Console. What AWS service should be used to determine what action made this EC2 instance inaccessible? Option A, Amazon Cloud Watch Logs. Option B, AWS Security Hub. Option C, Amazon Inspector. Option D, AWS Cloud Trail. The correct answer is D, AWS Cloud Trail. Here is why. Cloud Trail records supported AWS API and account activity, helping identify who stopped, terminated, or modified the EC2 instance. Why are the other options not correct? A. Cloud Watch Log stores application and system logs, but is not the primary API audit trail. B. Security Hub aggregates security findings. C. Inspector identifies software vulnerabilities and unintended network exposure. Exam tip: use Cloud Trail to determine who performed an AWS API action and when. Question number 363. An organization needs to transform its workforce by attracting and developing a digitally fluent high-performance workforce. The company wants to attract a diverse and inclusive workforce with appropriate mix of technical and non-technical skills. What AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, perspective can satisfy these requirements? Option A, Business. Option B, People. Option C, Platform. Option D, Operations. The correct answer is B, People. Here is why. The people perspective focuses on culture, workforce transformation, cloud fluency, leadership, organizational design, and workforce skills. Why are the other options not correct? A. Business focuses on strategy and measurable business outcomes. C. Platform focuses on cloud infrastructure and application delivery. D. Operations focuses on delivering and operating cloud services. Exam tip: AWS CF People covers culture, organizational change, leadership, and workforce skills. Question number 364. An organization needs to move its on-premises databases to manage cloud database services by using a simplified migration process. What AWS service or tool can help the company satisfy this requirement? Option A: AWS Storage Gateway. Option B: AWS Application Migration Service. Option C: AWS Data Sync. Option D: AWS Database Migration Service, AWS DMS. The correct answer is D: AWS Database Migration Service, AWS DMS. Here is why. AWS DMS simplifies migration of supported databases to AWS Managed Database Services and can minimize source database downtime. Why are the other options not correct? A. Storage Gateway provides hybrid access to AWS storage. B. Application Migration Service migrates servers and applications. C. Data Sync transfers files and object data between storage systems. Exam tip: use AWS DMS for databases. Use Application Migration Service for servers. Question number 365. An organization needs a fully managed file server that natively supports Microsoft workloads and file systems. The file server must also support the SMB protocol. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements? Option A: Amazon Elastic File System, Amazon EFS. Option B: Amazon FSEX for Lustre. Option C: Amazon FSEX for Windows File Server. Option D: Amazon Elastic Block Store, Amazon EBS. The correct answer is C: Amazon FSEX for Windows File Server. Here is why. FSEX for Windows File Server provides fully managed Windows file systems with native SMB support and integration with Microsoft environments. Why are the other options not correct? A. Amazon EFS provides NFS file storage primarily for Linux workloads. B. FSEX for Lustre is designed for high-performance computing workloads. D. Amazon EBS provides block storage for compute instances. Exam tip: choose FSEX for Windows File Server when Windows applications require SMB file shares. Question number 366. A user needs a relational database but does not have the resources to manage the hardware, resiliency, and replication. What AWS service option meets the user's requirements? Option A: Run MySQL on Amazon Elastic Container Service, Amazon ECS. Option B: Run MySQL on Amazon EC2. Option C: Choose Amazon RDS for MySQL. Option D: Choose Amazon Elastic Cache for RedISS. The correct answer is C: Choose Amazon RDS for MySQL. Here is why. Amazon RDS manages MySQL infrastructure tasks such as hardware provisioning, backups, failure recovery, and supported replication configurations. Why are the other options not correct? A. MySQL on ECS requires the customer to manage the database workload. B. MySQL on EC2 requires management of the guest OS, database, and resiliency. D. Elastic Cache for RedISS is an in-memory data store, not a relational database. Exam tip: RDS reduces database administration. Databases on EC2 remain largely self-managed. Question number 367. What mechanism allows developers to access AWS services from application code? Option A: AWS Software Development Kit. Option B: AWS Management Console. Option C: AWS Code Pipeline. Option D: AWS Config. The correct answer is A. AWS Software Development Kit. Here is why. AWS SDKs provide language-specific libraries that applications use to call and interact with AWS Service APIs. Why are the other options not correct? B. The Management Console is a graphical browser interface. C. CodePipeline automates software delivery pipelines. D. AWS Config tracks resource configuration and compliance. Exam tip. SDKs are for application code. The CLI is for command line interaction. Question number 368. An organization needs to allow users to authenticate and authorize multiple AWS accounts by using a single set of credentials. What AWS service or resource can satisfy this requirement? Option A. AWS organizations. Option B. IAM user. Option C. AWS IAM Identity Center, AWS Single Sign-On. Option D. AWS Control Tower. The correct answer is C. AWS IAM Identity Center, AWS Single Sign-On. Here is why. IAM Identity Center provides centralized workforce access to multiple AWS accounts and applications through one sign-in experience. Why are the other options not correct? A. Organizations manages accounts and policies, but is not the user sign-in service. B. An IAM user belongs to one account and is not centralized multi-account access. D. Control Tower establishes and governs a multi-account AWS environment. Exam tip. Use IAM Identity Center for centralized workforce access across AWS accounts. Question number 369. What AWS service provides a single location to track the progress of application migrations? Option A. AWS Application Discovery Service. Option B. AWS Application Migration Service. Option C. AWS Service Catalog. Option D. AWS Migration Hub. The correct answer is D. AWS Migration Hub. Here is why. Migration Hub provides a central location to track migration progress across supported AWS and partner migration tools. Why are the other options not correct? A. Application Discovery Service collects on-premises environment data. B. Application Migration Service performs lift and shift server migrations. C. Service Catalog distributes approved cloud products. Exam tip. Migration Hub tracks migrations. Discovery and migration services perform other tasks. Question number 370. Which of the following AWS services are serverless? Choose 2. Option A. AWS Outposts. Option B. Amazon EC2. Option C. Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, Amazon EKS. Option D. AWS Fargate. E. AWS Lambda. The correct answer is D. AWS Fargate. E. AWS Lambda. Here is why. Fargate runs containers without managing servers, while Lambda runs event-driven code without provisioning or managing servers. Why are the other options not correct? A. Outposts extends AWS infrastructure to on-premises locations. B. EC2 requires customers to select and manage virtual server instances. C. EKS manages Kubernetes, but is not inherently a serverless compute service. Exam tip. Lambda is serverless functions. Fargate is serverless compute for containers. Question number 371. When a user needs to utilize their existing per socket, per core, or per virtual machine software licenses for a Microsoft Windows server running on AWS, which Amazon EC2 instance type is required? Option A. Spot instances. Option B. Dedicated instances. Option C. Dedicated hosts. Option D. Reserved instances. The correct answer is C. Dedicated hosts. Here is why. Dedicated hosts provide visibility and control over physical sockets and cores, supporting eligible bring-your-own-license server software. Why are the other options not correct? A. Spot instances provide discounted interruptible capacity. B. Dedicated instances provide tenant isolation, but not host-level socket visibility. D. Reserved instances provide billing discounts or capacity benefits. Exam tip. Dedicated hosts support host-bound licensing based on sockets, cores, or physical hosts. Question number 372. An organization needs to integrate natural language processing, NLP, into business intelligence, BL dashboards. The company needs to ask questions and receive answers with relevant visualizations. What AWS service or tool can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon May-C. Option B. Amazon Rekognition. Option C. Amazon QuickSight-Q. Option D. Amazon Lex. The correct answer is C. Amazon QuickSight-Q. Here is why. QuickSight-Q, now represented by Amazon Q capabilities in QuickSight, enables natural language questions with relevant business intelligence answers and visualizations. Why are the other options not correct? A. Macy discovers and helps protect sensitive data in Amazon S3. B. Rekognition analyzes images and videos. D. Lex builds conversational interfaces, but is not the BI dashboard question service. Exam tip. Use natural language capabilities in QuickSight to ask questions about BI data. Question number 373. An organization needs to move 75 petabytes of data from its on-premises data centers to AWS. What AWS service should the company use to satisfy these requirements most cost-effectively? Option A. AWS Snowball Edge Storage Optimized. Option B. AWS Snowmobile. Option C. AWS Direct Connect. Option D. AWS Storage Gateway. The correct answer is B. AWS Snowmobile. Here is why. Snowmobile was designed for extremely large offline migrations and was more cost-effective operationally than coordinating many Snowball devices for 75 PB. Why are the other options not correct? A. Moving 75 PB would require coordinating a large number of Snowball Edge devices. C. Direct Connect transfers data over a dedicated network connection. D. Storage Gateway provides hybrid access to AWS storage, not bulk offline migration. Exam tip. Historical questions use Snowmobile for migrations involving tens of petabytes. Question number 374. What AWS service provides the ability to host a NoSQL database in the AWS cloud? Option A. Amazon Aurora. Option B. Amazon DynamoDB. Option C. Amazon RDS. Option D. Amazon Redshift. The correct answer is B. Amazon DynamoDB. Here is why. DynamoDB is a fully managed, serverless NoSQL key value and document database service. Why are the other options not correct? A. Aurora is a managed relational database. C. Amazon RDS provides managed relational database engines. D. Amazon Redshift is a managed data warehouse. Exam tip. DynamoDB is NoSQL. RDS and Aurora are relational database services. Question number 375. An organization is migrating to the AWS cloud and plans to run experimental workloads for 3 to 6 months on AWS. What pricing model can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Use savings plans for a 3-year term. Option B. Use dedicated hosts. Option C. Buy reserved instances. Option D. Use on-demand instances. The correct answer is D. Use on-demand instances. Here is why. On-demand instances require no long-term commitment and suit temporary, experimental workloads whose future usage is uncertain. Why are the other options not correct? A. A 3-year savings plan's commitment is unsuitable for a short experiment. B. Dedicated hosts address licensing or physical isolation needs. C. Reserved instances require a longer commitment than the experimental period. Exam tip: use on-demand for short-term or unpredictable workloads with no commitment. Question number 376. An organization is migrating its on-premises server to an Amazon EC2 instance. The server must stay active at all times for the next 12 months. What EC2 pricing option is the most cost-effective for the company's workload? Option A. On-demand. Option B. Dedicated hosts. Option C. Spot instances. Option D. Reserved instances. The correct answer is D. Reserved instances. Here is why. Reserved instances can reduce EC2 costs for predictable, continuously running usage when the company can make a 1-year commitment. Why are the other options not correct? A. On-demand avoids commitment, but normally costs more for steady use. B. Dedicated hosts address licensing and physical server requirements. C. Spot instances can be interrupted and do not suit a server that must remain active. Exam tip: use commitments for predictable sustained usage and spot for interruptible workloads. Question number 377. An organization needs to launch multiple workloads on AWS. Each workload is related to a different business unit. The company needs to separate and track costs for each business unit. What solution can satisfy these requirements with the least operational overhead? Option A. Use AWS organizations and create one account for each business unit. Option B. Use a spreadsheet to control the owners and cost of each resource. Option C. Use an Amazon DynamoDB table to record costs for each business unit. Option D. Use the AWS billing console to assign owners to resources and track costs. The correct answer is A. Use AWS organizations and create one account for each business unit. Here is why. Separate accounts provide clear workload and billing boundaries, while organizations support centralized management and consolidated billing. Why are the other options not correct? B. A spreadsheet requires manual updates and creates operational overhead. C. DynamoDB would require a custom cost tracking application. D. The billing console does not assign resource ownership automatically. Exam tip: AWS accounts are strong isolation and cost allocation boundaries for business units. Question number 378. What AWS service or tool will monitor AWS resources and applications in real time? Option A. AWS Trusted Advisor. Option B. Amazon CloudWatch. Option C. AWS Cloud Trail. Option D. AWS Cost Explorer. The correct answer is B. Amazon CloudWatch. Here is why. CloudWatch monitors AWS resources and applications through metrics, logs, alarms, dashboards, and near real-time operational data. Why are the other options not correct? A. Trusted Advisor provides best practice recommendations. C. Cloud Trail Record supported API and account activity. D. Cost Explorer analyzes AWS cost and usage. Exam tip: CloudWatch monitors operations. Cloud Trail audits API activity. Question number 379. What AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, capability belongs to the business perspective? Option A, Program and Project Management. Option B, Data Science. Option C, Observability. Option D, Change and Release Management. The correct answer is B, Data Science. Here is why. Data science is a business perspective capability that uses advanced analytics and machine learning to solve complex business problems. Why are the other options not correct? A, Program and Project Management belongs to the governance perspective. C, Observability belongs to the operations perspective. D, Change and Release Management belongs to the operations perspective. Exam tip: AWS CLF business capabilities connect cloud investments to business outcomes. Question number 380. What AWS resource can help a company reduce its costs in exchange for a usage commitment when using Amazon EC2 instances? Option A, Compute Savings Plans. Option B, Auto-Scaling Group. Option C, On-Demand Instance. Option D, EC2 Instance Store. The correct answer is A, Compute Savings Plans. Here is why. Compute Savings Plans reduce eligible compute prices in exchange for a consistent 1-year or 3-year usage commitment. Why are the other options not correct? B, an auto-scaling group adjusts capacity but is not a purchasing discount. C, on-demand instances require no commitment and receive no commitment discount. D, Instant Store is temporary storage attached to an EC2 host. Exam tip: savings plans exchange a usage commitment for discounted eligible compute usage. Question number 381. What perspective in the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, includes a capability for well-designed data and analytics architecture? Option A, Security. Option B, Governance. Option C, Operations. Option D, Platform. The correct answer is D, Platform. Here is why. The platform perspective includes data architecture, which covers designing and evolving a fit-for-purpose data and analytics architecture. Why are the other options not correct? A, Security focuses on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. B, Governance focuses on oversight, risk, financial management, and data governance. C, Operations focuses on delivering and operating cloud services. Exam tip: AWS CLF platform includes platform, application, data, and delivery capabilities. Question number 382. What options are AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, People Perspective capabilities? Choose 2. Option A, Organizational Alignment. Option B, Portfolio Management. Option C, Organization Design. Option D, Risk Management. E, Modern Application Development. The correct answer is A, Organizational Alignment. C, Organization Design. Here is why. Both capabilities belong to the people perspective and help align structures, operations, culture, roles, and workforce responsibilities. Why are the other options not correct? B, Portfolio Management belongs to the business perspective. D, Risk Management belongs to the governance perspective. E, Modern Application Development belongs to the platform perspective. Exam tip: AWS CLF People includes culture, leadership, organization, skills, and change. Question number 383. An organization needs a bridge between technology and business to help evolve to a culture of continuous growth and learning. What perspective in the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, AWS CLF, serves as this bridge? Option A, people. Option B, governance. Option C, operations. Option D, security. The correct answer is A, people. Here is why. The people perspective bridges technology and business and supports a culture of continuous growth, learning, and organizational change. Why are the other options not correct? B, governance provides control, oversight, and risk management. C, operations focuses on delivering reliable cloud services. D, security protects data and workloads. Exam tip: the people perspective connects cloud technology with culture and workforce change. Question number 384. What option is a responsibility of AWS under the AWS Shared Responsibility Model? Option A, application data security. Option B, patch management for applications that run on Amazon EC2 instances. Option C, patch management of the underlying infrastructure for managed services. Option D, application identity and access management. The correct answer is C, patch management of the underlying infrastructure for managed services. Here is why. AWS patches and maintains the physical infrastructure, virtualization layer, and underlying systems that operate managed AWS services. Why are the other options not correct? A, customers remain responsible for protecting their application data. B, customers patch applications that they deploy on EC2. D, customers manage identities and access for their applications. Exam tip: AWS manages underlying service infrastructure. Customers manage their applications. Question number 385. What complementary AWS service or tool creates data-driven business cases for cloud planning? Option A, Migration Evaluator. Option B, AWS Billing Conductor. Option C, AWS Billing Console. Option D, Amazon Forecast. The correct answer is A, Migration Evaluator. Here is why. Migration Evaluator is a complementary assessment service that creates data-driven business cases for AWS cloud planning and migration. Why are the other options not correct? B, Billing Conductor creates customized billing views for organizations. C, the Billing Console displays and manages billing information. D, Amazon Forecast is a time series forecasting service. Exam tip: Migration Evaluator builds a migration business case from infrastructure usage data. Question number 386. What AWS service or tool gives users the ability to connect with AWS and deploy resources programmatically? Option A, Amazon QuickSight. Option B, AWS Private Link. Option C, AWS Direct Connect. Option D, AWS SDKs. The correct answer is D, AWS SDKs. Here is why. AWS SDKs provide libraries and interfaces that applications use to call AWS APIs and deploy or manage resources programmatically. Why are the other options not correct? A, QuickSight provides business intelligence and visualization. B, Private Link provides private connectivity to supported services. C, Direct Connect provides dedicated network connectivity to AWS. Exam tip: use SDKs from application code and the CLI from command line scripts. Question number 387. An organization needs to deploy a non-containerized Java-based web application on AWS. The company needs to use a managed service to quickly deploy the application. The company wants the service to automatically provision capacity, load balance, scale, and monitor application health. What AWS service can satisfy these requirements? Option A. Amazon Elastic Container Service, Amazon ECS. Option B. AWS Lambda. Option C. Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, Amazon EKS. Option D. AWS Elastic Beanstalk. The correct answer is D. AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Here is why. Elastic Beanstalk deploys supported web applications and automatically manages capacity, load balancing, scaling, and application health monitoring. Why are the other options not correct? A. ECS deploys containerized applications. B. Lambda runs event-driven functions rather than a traditional Java web application stack. C. EKS manages Kubernetes container workloads. Exam tip: Elastic Beanstalk simplifies deployment of supported non-containerized web apps. You have completed Part 7 of the CLF-C02 practice series. Continue your preparation by opening the complete playlist and watching the remaining parts in sequence. Please like this video, subscribe to Tech with Kaushik, and enable notifications for more certification exam preparation content. Share your score, questions, or feedback in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next part.